Let's talk a little bit about your book. I know it's coming out April 5th. Give us a little background, synopsis, and what readers can expect.
So this book is a small town romantic suspense story following our female main character, Reese. She has just returned back to her hometown of Alpenglow Ridge to help her family as they are expanding their business. And when she comes into town, she meets their new landscaper, who is a single dad of three. And he is immediately smitten with her, and she's kind of like, nah, no thanks. But at her welcome home party, they kind of get to talking after she's, had a little bit to drink. She's feeling a little bit, feeling a little bit more chill. And things kind of take off as the story of her past and what has been going on with her since she left her hometown really unfolds in the story. So it's definitely for mature audiences. There are some darker themes in this book that might be sensitive to some readers, so you'll want to check my author's note. But I think that there's a lot to be enjoyed in this one, especially if you love steamy romance stories.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So it's high in spice. I know you tend to. Yeah, I love to. Yeah, I had to put that in there. Ain't no doubt
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
very steamy. I've had a range of people. So if you're in the community, we usually rate them by like chili peppers.
Yeah.
So my book, I've seen anywhere between 3 and 4 chili peppers out of a 1 to 5 scale. So I would say it's pretty high on the spice scale.
Yeah. You studied anthropology, right?
Mhm.
Does that present itself in your or in your writing and your stories at all in this book?
I would say so. I studied anthropology. So I did a mix between cultural and biological anthropology, physical anthropology. So I am very interested in communities like that. I talk about that all the time, and I've cultivated, my own online, and I think it's very interesting to just see people interact with each other. So I've done my own anthropological research even leading up to college. Like I was reading like journals and stuff like that, like in high school, and like so I've always been really interested in just what it takes to have like a functioning community, and also like what brings people together, what keeps them together, how does that really function. And so in my book, I spent a lot of time creating this full world. So, like, Saddled with Finesse, you can definitely read as a standalone. You don't have to, continue on in the series if you don't want to, but you really meet like a full community here. It's not just isolated with the couple themselves. Like we talk about, some of the businesses there, and also like how other people within this community interact with the main couple and, their friends and people close to them. And I think it's really interesting because sometimes when you have a romance, it is quite isolated and you really only see maybe immediate friends and like coworkers and that type of
Yeah.
thing. And I wanted this book to really feel like a real place. Like you can go to Alpenglow Ridge, Colorado, which is fictional, okay, very fictional, but I very well could see this being a small town here. And there's a lot of similarities between the small town I live in and other small towns I've lived in Colorado, in this place. So I I value that a lot in writing, like for it to feel very real. And so I think that kind of plays itself in my story quite a bit.
How do you define community?
For me, I just think about it as being a group of people who are just cohabitating together, whether that be like actually living together or really just coming together on a similar idea or premise. So, um, for me, community, we're all sharing about the same thing. So, I think it can mean many different things in many different contexts, and it really is more so the greater group of just people being together, and existing in the same place. And I think for a lot of us, like seeking community is just inherent in like what we do. We want to find others who are seeking the same goals or have the same interests and likes as we do. And um you can have a very isolated community, or you can have a larger community of just where people who exist in the same place, or people go to the same school or same job or whatever the case may be, but we share a commonality.
Yeah, and yeah, how does that community and that world building develop in your story? And what are the keys, I guess, to great world building in the story?
For me, I think great world building really comes about when you start with your characters, because it doesn't matter how amazing this world is that you built if people do not care about your characters. And I think that world building really hits its sweet spot when we're introduced to the world through your characters' eyes and their viewpoints, their perspective, and it starts very small with them and can grow from that point. So I want to experience this world through their eyes. So when you go into a room, you're not going to know the exact dimensions. You're not going to know like everybody who lived in this room, or you're not going to know like when they have someone come and clean it, like all these details and such that would not be important to the character are not things that I want to learn about. I want to see and learn through them because I want to know why it's important. Why does it matter? I don't need to know all the extra stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with my character, because how does that help me?
Right.
How does that help me connect with this person? So I think world building really is the best when you're able to experience what the world is like through the character's lens and allow them to show you what they're seeing. And that's when it feels the most natural and the most easeful to um, find out about the place that you're in your book.
Yeah, speaking of characters, what does the hero of your story want in this book?
Well, I've got two mains since my book is a dual point of view. So the female main character just wants to go home. Because of some choices she made in her past, she was not able to go back to her hometown, even though she desperately wanted to be back home. And so this book is really about how she is trying to figure out how she can go back home and stay home. And for my main male character, he really just wants family. He lost his parents at a young age, and he's been trying to like make his own family for a long time, and it didn't work out. And so he ends up going to this small town to be with his aunt, who's like his closest living relative, so that he can kind of get that family feeling and start to really appreciate some of the best benefits of being around your relatives and your family.
Yeah, I like that duality in this book too. I'm interested in hearing about your writing process and how everything went from start to finish, or even what your writing routine was like.
I am what we a pantser. Um, I don't outline anything
Oh wow.
like at all. And it's kind of one of those things like my characters feel very real, so they talk to me, and I know like that's like such a strange thing for people to hear if you don't do a lot of writing, but my characters are super loud in my head. And so I literally just sit down and let them tell me what's going on. And so for probably like um 20, 30,000 words is really just me putting scenarios of them together and like how they acted around them. So I usually start with like some of the big things. Like I go for the breakup first. Like that's the first thing that I write is like what's going to be their tipping point. And it's a really painful one. Like a lot of people message me when reading this book when they get to the third act breakup in my story, and they're just like, "Are you trying to kill me?" Like, no, question mark. But yeah, so I write all over the place, and then I go in and kind of like make everything make sense, and it works for me. I've really been like that my whole life, like writing academically, writing for fun. I just write what comes to me first, and then I make all the pieces fit together, and that just really works for me. If I try to do an outline, it's not going to work. It's going to take me forever, and I'm going to be dissatisfied.
No, that's unique writing style because even with me, I used to be, I guess, what you'd consider prancing when it comes to writing. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that I do appreciate the outline because then you can, it's almost that flexibility within parameters for me. But I think that's interesting because you've been able to continue to use that freelance, that creativity, no matter how you write. So that's actually really cool. If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookumapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.